Hey, friends, welcome back to the Be the Bigger Person podcast. I'm Melissa, your faith filled friend and grieving daughter who waited until my 30s for love. And through all of this and then some, has learned a lot about growing in the Lord and being the bigger person. From grief to singleness to marriage to friendships and all the faith in between. Let's have the honest and vulnerable conversations you've been looking for. Before we jump in, if something about this episode sticks out to you and makes you go, ooh, yes, take a screenshot of the episode and share it on social media with your people. And be sure to tag at Be the Bigger Person Pod. So let's jump right in. This episode is a very exciting one because I am pregnant. That is still really wild for me to say. And I'm going to go into so many facets of like the ups and downs of this pregnancy. But I just wanted to be really honest with you all about my journey in pregnancy thus far. And just how grief has factored into it, why we decided to have the baby, to start trying for a baby now, just all the things. So by the time you're listening to this episode, I'm recording this a couple of days in advance. I will be about 16 weeks. So I'm like midway early in my second trimester. I'm feeling good. We'll just start there because what I want to do in this episode is I want to answer a lot of the questions I've been asked. And also just again, talk about the really honest things about pregnancy that like some are specific to grief, some are specific to waiting until you're a little bit older because I'm 35 when by the time we have this baby, I will be 36. But also just some of the questions I've been asked, which the number one question when I tell people I'm pregnant is, how are you feeling? My first trimester, thankfully, was I would say like it wasn't mild, but it was like, you know how like on an oven, there's like low, medium, medium, high, I was in like the medium low. I threw up a couple of times. I had a lot of acidity. I naturally struggle with a lot of like silent reflux, acid reflux. And so that was kind of kicked up a notch. Thankfully, my OB is amazing, and has really helped a lot in finding remedies and things like that. But I've been feeling good now that I'm like into my second trimester. I still have a little bit of that kind of like acidity, but not as terrible. And I'm just so hungry now. Like I'm eating all day. Like I'm constantly hungry, which I'm grateful for because my first trimester, all I lived on was bread and pasta, basically, and mostly saltines. So that was great to not be in that phase of pregnancy anymore. Okay, let me take you guys back to the beginning. So Ivan and I got married February 2nd, 2025. And even before that, like obviously, as we were talking about, we both really want kids. We both have always wanted to be parents. We also both are in our 30s, and we recognize that that starts to make fertility a little bit more complicated, or not complicated, but just maybe less promised, right? Less easy. And so we both very much agreed on the fact that we wanted to wait a full year before trying. Like we very much were like, we're not going to try. We're not even going to be like loosey goosey. We're not going to be like, we're literally going to be super, super, I wouldn't say strict, but like we were very much like when there were days where I could get pregnant, it was like we were taking every precaution to not. So come July, we had a bit of a pregnancy scare, a super minor pregnancy scare, where we were kind of like, wait, I might be pregnant. Like, I think I could be pregnant. And so I think for me, what that did was, and I'll get into this a lot more later, but for me, that started me on the process of thinking about and really processing what it would be like to be pregnant, specifically in thinking about having this baby and being pregnant without my mom here. So put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. So there was kind of that 2 weeks, right? A woman's natural cycle of where we thought I might be pregnant, but it was too early to find out. in that 2 weeks, we had two different people say things like totally unprompted. One, we were talking to them and they said, "Oh, Melissa, you're glowing." And I was like, it did not click in my brain. I said, "Oh, well, thanks. I washed my face today." And Ivan was like, "Yeah, and she's not pregnant." And this person was like, "Uh-huh, okay, sure." And we were like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not pregnant." And they were like, "Okay, sure." And so we were like, that was weird. Okay, like, I don't know. Could that be a sign? I don't know, whatever. And then we had somebody else reach out to me out of the blue and tell me that they had a dream that involved me having a baby. And literally, that text came like a day or two before I would be able to be able to find out if I was pregnant or if my monthly friend was going to come. Um, and I literally, Ivan and I were in the same room together, and I got that text and I went, no. And I threw my phone across the room because we had been having conversations, really intentional conversations of like, is this God showing us that he is changing our timeline? Because we were having really intentional conversations of like, what does it look like? And obviously this is a broader conversation, but we were talking about it specifically with pregnancy. What does it look like to take control of our timing in a way that perhaps prevents us from God's timing, like making a 180 for us? Is that even a possibility, right? Like, as God is just such an almighty being, an almighty God, that like, is there even a such thing as us taking action that prevents him and his timing? Or like, if it's almost like if God wants it to be, like no man can stop it. So we were having those kind of 30,000 foot level conversations, but also like, I don't know, like, is this God showing us perhaps we need to pray into his timing and what that might look like different from ours? So we were really having these conversations. We were both, Ivan and I, praying about this, really intentionally praying about it, and just really remaining open. Like, Lord, if this is something you want for us before February of 2026, which would be the 1 year, show us, right? So it turns out I wasn't pregnant. Got my monthly friend, and I think that kind of when that happened, when I wasn't pregnant, we were both pretty disappointed. And I think for us, that was kind of a big turning point in like, I think if we were relieved, we would have been like, yeah, okay, we're waiting for February. But we were both really disappointed. And I think for us, that kind of showed us like, okay, let's maybe start leaning into what if God wants us to have a baby. Now, we basically decided that we were going to try for 1 month. And if it didn't happen in that month for various like scheduling timing reasons, like if we got pregnant in this month, it wouldn't work timing for when we would have a baby and that kind of thing. We basically were like, we're going to try for 1 month in August. And if we don't get pregnant, we'll start again in December. Like, take September, October, November off from trying, really prevent pregnancy because timing schedule wise wouldn't have worked. And we'll try again in December. But like, if it happens in August, that's amazing. Wouldn't you know, we got pregnant in August. So clearly the Lord was like, yes, I am changing your timeline for all of this. So got pregnant in August and we are due in May. And honestly, like, it just showed me so much of like, when the Lord places something on your heart, even if it's just that small, like it was a small pregnancy scare and like two just random comments, which could be taken out of context, or not out of context, but like could be taken as just like, yeah, they're comments. Okay, cool. Or like, oh, you're married, you have a pregnancy scare. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, but I really feel like what it showed me and taught me was, if God is kind of nudging something on you or making you think a little differently, don't immediately go and like completely change course, but really pray into it and really pray like, Lord, if this is your will, change my heart. If this is your will, move me out of the way. Um, and really have your way. Those were the kind of prayers that we were praying of like, Lord, if this is your will for us to have a baby and to get pregnant sooner than we in our own human understanding had planned, like move us out of the way and have your way. It also really matters for me to say this. I am so beyond insanely grateful. It is not lost on me what a blessing it is that we got pregnant so quickly. I have so many friends that have struggled for so many months, so many years with wanting to be pregnant and wanting to get pregnant and not being able to, and infertility, and that being such a struggle. And it is not lost on me. I don't say it flippantly, how grateful I am that this was the way things went for us. Again, I don't know that that means that next time it's going to be that easy. The Lord knows. Um, and so I think it's really important for me to say that because I know so many people have struggled and do struggle so much with infertility. That I just, especially at 35, I consider myself very fortunate. I'm very grateful. It is not lost on me whatsoever. Um, so a couple of the questions that I want to answer. Number one, how has Ivan been? Guys, this man, he was like meant to be a husband and a father and a husband to a pregnant woman. He is such a gift. And again, I'm going to, after this, talk about the grief and all of this. And I've experienced a lot of grief. The Lord knew that I would need Ivan and who Ivan is. And the way I'm getting so choked up thinking about this because the Lord knew that I would need exactly who Ivan is and the heart that he has and the way that he cares for me in this. Um, to almost like counteract or to fill in the gaps of grief. He has been such a godsend. Like, he's literally like jumps at everything. I'm like in bed and I'm like, can you just fill my water? He's like, absolutely. Like, what cup? Like, okay, got it. Like he's just such a gift. He thanks me every day for doing this for our family and for, especially when I was feeling so sick, like thanking me for walking through it. Um, he asks me constantly, like, do you feel beautiful? Do you feel like, do you feel beautiful? Because if not, I'm going to continue to remind you how insanely beautiful you are and how you just get even more beautiful with pregnancy. Like, he's such a gift. He's such a gift. And especially in grief, I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit. Um, I mentioned earlier, um, when we had a bit of a pregnancy scare and I kind of started to think of like, okay, what would it be like to be pregnant? The thing that hit me like a brick was doing this without my mom. My mom and I talked like so much about me having kids and how she would be involved and all the little things, the things she would buy for them, the things she would, you know, take them out on outings and she would babysit them 5 days a week, if I was working and she would come when I had a newborn and stay overnight, 1 or 2 nights a week so that we could sleep and just, I mean, even the ways I saw her with my niece and nephew, like, you know, she would fly out to where they live when my brother and my sister-in-law wanted to go on a trip and she would watch them overnight and was just so competent and so amazing as a grandmother. Um, Reading books and playing games and teaching them things. And we just talked so much about that. and all the things that we would do together when I was pregnant and having kids. And to think through suddenly it hitting me that that wasn't gonna, like, none of that is gonna happen has been so hard and so heartbreaking. And, I think when we had that pregnancy scare, and I don't even wanna call it a scare, but when we thought we were pregnant, um, it was like the dam of emotions opened up, and I the thing that I thought would be a down the road eventuality was suddenly now, and I couldn't avoid it, and it just all hit me that I was suddenly entering a season of life of being pregnant and having kids where my mom wouldn't be here. And it's just and it's one of those things that I know will ebb and flow, and I know I'll walk through different seasons of interacting with my grief, but I don't ever see a world where that grief is gone or where I'm okay with the fact that my mom's not here for my kids to grow up with. And, people say all the time, like, well, her legacy will live on in you. And it's true. We are so much alike, my mom and I. And I know that there's going to be so many ways that our child and future children come to know my mom because of who I am and because I know the Lord is going to pour in to me, like, insight and wisdom from my mom for my kids. And so while I understand and am grateful for those that are trying to encourage me and, like, that she'll live on in me, and I know she has and she always will, it's just not the same, you know? Like, my mom, I joke she was like the mother to the mothers. Like, so many people that I know, people that were like my generation, but also her generation, have talked so much about how they would go to her with parenting questions, and, like, she was giving them incredible parenting advice, and she, like, sat on panels at conferences and taught classes about parenting. Like, she was just so meant to be a mom and had such incredible wisdom and with such a confidence in it that it's like, I don't get to ask her those questions in real time, and that, like, breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And so I actually, when I thought I was pregnant back in July, I called one of my friends who talks a lot about parenting advice that my mom gave her, and she had her kids, and I called her and I was like, "Can you just tell me parenting advice that my mom told you?" And I know I'm gonna continue to do that with people who I know that my mom impacted in that way. Um, but anyways, it's been really hard to think about having a baby without my mom. Um, I actually made, thanks to ChatGPT, I made like a watercolor painting, um, where it's like my mom is handing me a baby because I just got this image and I know that the Lord provided it to me of my mom, like, because I was like, my mom will never know this baby, until they're old and hopefully 100 years old when they get to heaven. But like, I just really felt like the Lord was like, no, she knows them now. Like, she knows them now, and she's handing them off to you. And that imagery of my mom, like, knowing our baby, not like our child who grows up, but like our baby, was such a beautiful thing for me. And so, thanks to ChatGPT, I will forever cherish that photo and that drawing. Um, and so also, I mean, again, in that grief, I've had so many breakdowns, like so much, just the waves. Anyone that has gone through really intense grief knows it comes in waves. And Ivan has just ridden every wave with me. Um, he just sits with me in sadness. I mean, he's sad for it too, right? Like, he got to know my mom a little bit, right, in passing, but he's having grief too that he doesn't get to watch my mom be a Mimi. He doesn't get to have our children know her, right? And so while his grief is different from mine, he's grieving too. And he's supporting me in my grief. And he's just been really sitting with me and loving me and encouraging me that we're going to do everything we need to do to be sure that our kids know their Mimi and feel her, and that she's incorporated um, as much as possible, and never making me feel bad about grief, never making me feel like, oh, this is such a joyful thing. Like, why are you sad? He always talks about he always says, healthy adults, we can hold nuance. And this is one of those where I'm so beyond grateful and so beyond overjoyed and happy for this baby, and would not have this any other way. Like, I know this is exactly the timing that we are supposed to have this child. Um, and so there's so much joy, the joy that I cannot even express. And also there's grief. There's so much grief and so much sadness. And he's just been so incredible and understanding and grace-filled and thoughtful and loving in all of it. Just, he's incredible. I'm so grateful that God chose him to be my husband.
Before we go any further, let's talk about something special. In case you didn't know, my brother Josh has Down syndrome, and I'm always, literally always, looking for a way to share about him, about Down syndrome, and about our life as a Down syndrome family with others. Throughout my years as an elementary and special education teacher, I was kind of unfortunately surprised by how few books there were that both taught kids about Down syndrome in a way that was age appropriate and not just a science textbook, with also having an engaging story that featured someone with Down syndrome as the main character. So I decided to fill that gap and write a book of my own, using my master's degree in special education and my 30 plus years as a Down syndrome sister. The ups and downs of a very special superhero shares with kids and really readers of all ages what Down syndrome is, what characteristics people with Down syndrome often possess, what life with someone who has Down syndrome looks like, and how they can be superheroes too through speaking up for what's right. This book will prompt your kids to ask questions and will give you the answers to guide the conversations, and will empower you and your kids to be leaders for change and for kindness in the disability space. Because the more you understand, the better you will be. And what better way to do that than through storytelling that represents more inclusive characters and families? To get a copy for your family, your classroom, or your friends, head to Special Ups and Downs. That's Special UPS and Downs.com or use the link below in my episode notes. Now, back to our episode.
So, yeah, I'm so grateful. I honestly just could not be more grateful. And honestly, have had so many people around me, people that are local, people that live all over. That's been a blessing to have just people all over um, that have just expressed such a desire to be so present for us, for this baby. Um, just, I think so many people, something I think that's really beautiful about grief. There's not a lot of things that are beautiful about grief. So I feel like when there are, I need to highlight them. Is that yes, the quantity of people tends to, that are people that are intentional in your life tends to shrink, but the quality of people that remain and that are still showing up are so incredible. And that is what I've experienced is that, especially because people understand like it's one thing to show up for somebody when they're having a baby, and it's another thing to show up for somebody who's having a baby who also has experienced such great loss. I've seen that so much that I think people are making a point to be that much more intentional because they know that there's such a big void that we're experiencing because my mom's not here. And I am so incredibly grateful. We also are in the process of buying a house, very close to buying a house. And people have just been so incredible about like, when the baby comes, we'll watch the baby, or if you need help moving into the house or unpacking or whatever. People have been so kind about bringing up my mom and just incorporating her into conversation about pregnancy and this baby. And I just know that this baby is already so, so, so loved. And Ivan and I both are feeling so much of that love as well. Um, yeah, it's just been a really beautiful thing. And even, I mean, in the early, first like 10, 12 weeks, I really wasn't telling many people. We told our immediate family, we told like our best friends, some like kind of inner circle people. Um, and just the love and support that was there, especially in that time, because I think in that time there's a lot of fear that can come up about miscarriage and about loss and about health and just all of that. And there was so much encouragement as I'm literally, I wish you could go back that far because like I'm right now, what, week 16? Like if you could look at my search history from like week 6, it was every single search was, can I do blank while pregnant? Can I eat blank while pregnant? Can I take blank while pregnant? Like just constant. And Ivan loves research, loves it, loves it, loves it. It like lights his fire. It overwhelms me. It lights his fire. So he was researching everything and telling me, he wasn't telling me everything, thankfully, because I told him I was like, that's going to overwhelm me. But he was telling me the important stuff, which I'm so beyond grateful for. I know that that's going to be such an asset in this pregnancy and baby. Like, I'm like, just research all the strollers and tell me your top 3. Like, he loves that. He loves doing intense research. And so he will love doing that. And I will love the fact that I don't have to research all the strollers or, whatever. Um, so yeah, it's wild. Now I would show you, I'm actually not really showing. I just sort of look like I gained some weight. And probably like if I wasn't pregnant, I'd be like, wow, I need to hit the gym. But I know I'm pregnant. And so I just kind of look like I've gained weight. I'm not even at a point where there's even like a noticeable bump. There's just sort of, Melissa's she's gained a couple pounds around the midsection. Um, and it is that wild thing. I understand what women talk about where they're like, I can't wait for it to look like I'm just not bloated or I'm not just bloated and I'm actually pregnant. I can't wait for that either. Um, but yeah, I'm just really grateful. We're very excited. And with that, and with just so much going on in this season, I really want to be so present as we move, as we prepare for this baby, I want to be so present. And so I'm going to be taking a long break from the podcast. I don't know um, when I come back, when I will come back. I feel in my heart of hearts that I will at some point. I don't know when that is, though. Um, I now have done 5 seasons of this podcast over 5 years. Um, it started just as a place to hear people's stories and talk about how people became who they are today and the building blocks of their stories that we can all learn from. And 6 months into it, my mom passed away, and it became such a vital part of my grief journey and so many of your grief journeys, um, that we had a space to really authentically and really in a raw way and an honest way talk about grief, talk about the things that are helpful and not helpful, talk about the things that we hate, um, put tools in our tool belt, especially for those of you that have not walked through grief or when you started listening had not and now have and have tools in your tool belt because of it. It is not lost on me that the Lord made lemonade out of lemons using this podcast and just the conversations that we've been able to have. It is not lost on me why the Lord put the desire on my heart to start a podcast 5 years ago, even longer ago than that. I just thought it was because I love to talk and love to be in front of the camera. um, but the Lord knew that it would be a really important, really intentional, really meaningful, really groundbreaking way for us all to have these conversations and for us all to be part of the dialogue that is faith, grief, and personal growth and supporting our people well. Those are the pillars of this podcast. They have obviously evolved. I never started this podcast planning to talk about grief or thinking I would have to or would even know anything about it. But the Lord, again, just brought light so the darkness wouldn't overtake. And I look forward to what this is going to look like in the future, whenever that is, whenever the Lord puts it back on my heart to start this up again. So don't go too far. I'm also going to still be on social media. Yes, I'm sure in a season of newborn like lack of sleep, that's going to look a lot different than it looks now where I'm posting 2, 3 times, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. But I just love this community so much. I love the conversations we've been able to have. I love the impact that I've had on you and you've had on me. And I know that there's going to only be more of that to come. And so thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for uh, going on this pause with me as I go on a pause. And I trust that you'll come back when the Lord has it for me to return. Um, and I'm just really grateful. So here's to new seasons. Here's to the Lord's goodness in grief and in goodness and in love and in joy. Here's to promises fulfilled. Here's to new seasons and journeys for me and for all of you. So, with that, I'll see you on the next episode of Be the Bigger Person podcast.